Hi there everybody, Peter here from SailPro. In this video, I'm going to walk you through SailPro SIM, which is a new product for us. And we hope that it's going to be widely accepted by you yachties out there. What is it? SailPro SIM, as the name might suggest, it's a racing simulator. So it enables you to basically simulate yacht racing. And you can use it yourself for your own training, but if you're a sailing coach or you're a yacht club, you can obviously use it in your training program. It also has some features in there that will make it suitable for managing protest hearings, but also doing tactical analysis and advanced sailing coaching. So what I'm going to do I'm going to break it up into different sections. And the first section we're going to do is an overview of what the system does and how to quickly use it and navigate your way around it. Okay, so let's jump into it. Okay, so to access SailPro SIM is pretty easy. You just come to our website, you click the racing simulator and click any of these launch simulator buttons. And then SIM will open in another tab in your browser. Now, it's important to note that SailPro SIM, it's really designed to run in a normal web browser. So on your PC, on a laptop, it's not really, you can run it on a mobile, but it's really designed to be run on a big screen that you can either, as I said, look at it from your computer, or you could have it running on your monitor in your training rooms or wherever you want to have it. So once you've opened it, here it is here. Let's talk about who might want to use it. Well, if you are a sailing coach, definitely you can use it to explain some of the from everything from simple race setup to advanced tactics. But if you're also a yachty and you're looking to really understand some of these concepts yourself a bit more, you can use that. You can also use it to review some of the things that you might have happened in a race and you want to sort of go back and look at it and re-examine it and learn for the next time. You can use it for that. But it's really designed for sailing coaches and anyone that really wants to improve their sailing. It's a simulator, so just like, I guess pilots run in simulators, then sailors can run in their own simulator, and that's what SailPro SIM is designed to do. So once you're in the application, I'm going to run through really quickly what we're sort of looking at here, and then we'll dive into each of these sections in more detail in the upcoming sections. All right, so you can see that, as I said, it runs in a normal browser. On the left here, we've got our course controls. These are panels that we call here. These are our course controls, and you can hide any panel by just clicking the little triangle there, and that will open and collapse those. And so the course controls panel basically allows you to set up the course. Okay, so you can select whether it's an upwind course or a downwind. You can set the wind direction, start line length, distance to the first mark, boat length, tacking angle, mark offset, and the ladder spacing here. These are our ladders here, and you can change them either by moving the slider or by typing in here. You can change that to 5 if you like, and you'll see the wind direction here will reflect that. Let's just put that back to 0. All right. So underneath that, as I said, we're setting up the course here. You can turn on and off all of these different things. So you can show the wind projection lines. These are the wind projection lines here. So they're basically pointing 90 degrees directly into the wind. The ley lines, these purple ley lines are here. These are the ley lines here. The ladder lines, these are the ladder lines going across. So you can see, and they run 90 degrees to the wind. So you can see as I move the wind around here, or if I change the wind up here, then the ladder lines will reflect that. Show course to mark, which is this line here. Show the projected boat's track. So when we run it, you'll see they've got a little track here that we can turn on and off. You can show wind shadows. So if you're using it for, again, tactical training, talking about where you might position your boat, all that sort of stuff, you can turn that on and off. And then you can show the 3 boat length zone around any marks. And a quick one here, if you want to quickly square the wind to the line, you can just click that button there. And then if you want to, you can load an example here that's already got an example in it. If you want to really quickly jump into it and see what it does, you can do that. All right, so we've done that there. The fleet setup is where you choose how many boats you want on the course. You can select up to 8 boats by moving this slider across, okay? But again, you can also change the number of boats by using the little the enter field here. And then you can customize all of the boats underneath. So you can say, which one's on starboard, which one's on port. Its position on line basically means where their starting position. So you can see as I move boat A, which is down the pin end, you can see its position on line is 10. That means 10% of the line, it's from the 0 is the pin, 100% is the start boat. Okay, so I can move him like that. I can change the bow distance. So if I go back up here and I remove that down to 0, so I put them all back behind the start line. I can change the bow distance. So if I move this one, you can see bow distance going back behind the line, or you can have them all at 0. The tack at tells the system when this boat is to tack, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail. And then you can do that for each boat. You can change the color. All right, so that's how you would set the boats up. At the top, we've got our start and finish line bias. Okay, so when we set the course up, we'll now get a readout of how biased the line is. So you can see, we're using this example, if I go to the start line bias, you can see the line angle is 98. The bias angle from square is 10 degrees. Okay, so it's boat end favored. All right, so you can see that down here. So you can see the boat end is favored here, right? And you can visualize this, the geometry of it, right? So you can see the boat end is actually closer to that first ladder run there. And we'll go through this in more detail. But if we scroll back up, so it will tell us that there's a 27.8 meter advantage to the boat, which is roughly, 3.1 boat lengths, which is based on the boat length here. So if I change the boat length here, I make it smaller, you can see the advantage changes. And then we have the length of the line here, which is 27 boat lengths. Okay, you can change the length of the start line by changing the start line length. And then if I flick over into downwind, you can see it's going to do the same thing, but for the finish line. All right. So that's the start line bias. Underneath that, we've got our play and pause and step controls. What you can do here is once you've set your course up, you can then press the play button. All right, and it will play through that course. So you can see the boats are moving here. All right, and then if you want, you can, I'll just pause that. You can change the speed of that from slow, normal, fast. But if you want, you can use the step forward, step backwards button. All right, so you can do that there. Now, if we look, you can also use the slider. So you can grab this and slide them through. So you can see that doing that there. And again, I'll go through this in more detail in some of the upcoming sections. This is the course view, as we've been talking about. So you can see here the course itself, and you can sort of see what's happening, right? This is where you're viewing the simulation. And on the right-hand side, we've got our wind arrow. So we can use this to just basically change the wind like this. Or we can set up automatic wind shifts, either oscillating or persistent. So if I choose oscillating, and I've got my amplitude and period set, and then I click the play button, you'll see that it will play that. Okay, so you can see the wind is moving. All right, and then you can do that for either oscillating or a persistent shift. Oscillating means it'll swing backwards and forwards. Persistent means it'll just move to one side and stay there. Underneath that, we've got our, let's just go through auto and manual mode. So right now we're in auto mode. So what that means is that it's basically you set the course up, you click play, or you step forward, and then the course will do the rest. All right. But if you want to, you can jump into manual mode and you can manually set everything up. All right, so you can move the boats around yourself. So if you're doing like protests or you're doing advanced sort of tactics training, you can sort of set the boats up by themselves. You can still use the wind as well, but you've got some more controls here. One, you can put in extra marks. So if I click plus, I can add in, I'm going to put the boat zone on that. And you'll see it will add that mark there. And then you can put that where you want. So if you've got a hitch mark in here, you can put that in there and then change the name for it. Okay, but I'm just going through a very quick overview of it. So we're not going to go that into detail because we'll cover that in a further section. All right, so you can set extra marks, but you can also create you can also create different scenes. So the example here is that you've got a protest. What you can do is create different scenes for each different, the protestor or the protestee's view of the events. You can create all those here. And again, we'll create some of those in the upcoming sections. All right, so you can create scenarios there and then you can play them back. So you can actually see, okay, this is what your view of it was, this is my view of it, and then play it back. Of course, the persistent shift. And then if you want to, you can tack boats, tack or jibe them by double clicking the boat here. And then if you want, you can actually just luff them by one click. And if you want to bear away, it's just right click one. All right, so that's that. And then you've got your zoom control, so you can zoom to the fleet. So if you click that, it will zoom in to all boats, or you can go to the close course and see each boat. You can see the boats actually, once you zoom in, they get smaller because their size is relative to what you set as boat length here. Okay, that's the course view. Also, you can go snap back out of the course view, but you've also got full screen view as well. So you can run this on a full screen and then obviously hiding all of those course setup controls. So once you've set up your course, you can go to the full screen view and hide it. So now you can project this on a big monitor or play it back on a smart TV or what have you. And then you can basically control those boats and set everything up in here, and then everybody can see it really easily. All right, underneath that, we've got our fleet summary. So as we play through the course, this is what's telling us who's the leader, what the gap is to the leader, the distance traveled, the distance to the mark, distance sailed, gap to the leader, and the gap in boat lengths to the leader. All right, so this is a really good way to set up a course and then show how things are changing on the race course. And as boats go from one side to the other, or they tack, or they jibe, or what have you, how the lead changes. Okay, and last of all, but certainly not least, is if we turn off, we go back into auto mode down here, switch back into auto, and then scroll back down, we've now got our AI race builder. So what this can actually do is you can instruct it, use like a normal sort of prompt, such as the one that this example here, and enter that into there and click generate race, and it will generate the race and then you can play it. Okay, so it's like using natural language to be able to create a race. So that's a pretty exciting feature for SailPro SIM. All right, so that is basically a quick walkthrough of all of the features that exist inside SailPro SIM. Okay, so welcome back. So in this section of the video, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into how you can use SailPro SIM in your sail training, sail coaching, whatever you may be using it for, and just do a deep dive on how to set it up and how you might be able to use it. Obviously, it's quite complex, so it does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you've sort of got it, you can probably easily set up scenarios and use it efficiently in your coaching practice. All right, so basically there's two modes that you can run SailPro SIM in. We've got a auto mode and a manual mode. All right, so as the name suggests, in auto, basically you set the race up and then it will basically run itself, and you can use it to sort of simulate sort of different things happening in the yacht race itself. So to do that, the first thing you need to do is obviously set your course controls up. And this is where you set your course up. So you can set your wind direction, your start line direction. So I would just suggest, you leave that as 0 and 90, and that basically means that you're starting with a perfectly square course, which is never the case in the real world, but it's basically enabling you to get it set up. Your start line length, this can be of real impact to the start line bias. So depending on how long that is, the more bias you're going to see in a line, depending on the line. So if you've got a big fleet, you might have up to 250, 300 meters of start line, maybe even more. And that's going to have a really large effect. And so you can use that to sort of demonstrate to someone or yourself to see how does bias work in a start line or a finish line. The distance to the first mark is the overall length of the race, and you can set it from up to a maximum of 1,000 meters. So you can see as I do that, the course will get longer, the ley lines get wider, and so on. So you can sort of simulate what happens when you get down to sort of smaller courses. So we'll set that as 1,000. The boat length is obviously the length of the boats that we're using, and this has an effect on start line bias, on the gap to the leader. So really everything is a lot calculated based on the boat length. So if you're sort of sailing J24s or something, you can sort of reduce this to around 7 meters. Or if you're racing bigger boats, it could be 10 meter, like 40 footers, 10 meter boats, or going up to like 50 footers. You can do that here. All right. So we'll just leave that down we'll leave it around the 6 mark. And then the tacking angles, which represent the tacking angles of the boat. So what it sails upwind to the wind. So typically that's around 45 degrees. Although if you're sailing a foiling boat, that could be a little bit narrower. If you're sailing bigger boats, it could be a bit wider. So you can adjust that there. And then you've got the mark offset. Now the mark offset means basically, a proper true course would be one where the first mark is directly perpendicular to the start line. Well, that is never the case. And so what you can do is simulate, say, that being off center. Simulate it being off center. Excuse me. And then we've got the ladder spacing. So these dashed lines running horizontally across the page here, these are the ladder spacing. So the default is 50, but you can make that shorter. So you can take it down to 30 meters, or you can make them bigger. And the ladder lines basically just help to visualize the effect of things like the mark being offset, the start line being bias, these types of things. So you can simulate that. And if you're new to sailing, you might have seen this in things like the America's Cup. They overlay this when they're showing the race, right? And this is kind of similar to that. Now, underneath the ladder spacing, you can turn your projection lines off and on. So these are the projection lines here, all right? And they are pointing directly into the wind. The ladder lines, you can turn them off and on. The ley lines you can turn off and on, which are the purple lines here. The ladder lines, you can turn them off and on. Show the course to the first mark. This is this dash line here. And then you can show projected boats tracks. So you can turn that off. So if I turn that off, then we won't show any track behind the boat. We'll leave that on. Show wind shadows. So you can also show wind shadows. So if we zoom into the fleet, you can see there are the wind shadows there, and they are based on the wind direction, the direction the boat is sailing, and the length of the boat. Okay, so they'll change as the boat moves around the course. Again, you can use this to simulate, what happens when you sail in someone's shadow, and so on. So now, if you want to, you can quickly set the line to square. If you get that all sort of, you just want to get back to a normal sort of base, but you would have to reset the mark offset, but we'll leave that as it is right now. We'll flick back to course view. And then here underneath that, we can set up the number of boats we're going to have on our course. All right. So we're going to say, you can have up to 8, anywhere between 2 and 8 boats. And you'll see as I slide those along, they'll populate. And then underneath, you'll have all of your boats here, boat A, B, C, and D, and so on. Okay. And then as you see, you'll be able to modify how they basically run the race. Okay, so you can set what tack they are on to begin with. So in this case, sort of we've got starboard, port, so you can make them all on starboard if you like, or mix them around. You could simulate someone starting from port, someone starting from starboard, and simulate those types of things. All right, so once you've got your boats set up, you can obviously you can change the colors, all those sorts of things. You'll see you've got this tack at. Now, what I'll do is basically what this does is it tells the simulator when to tack this boat, when to create a tack. And so, for example, if we, at the maximum, it'll show 2,000, but as you reduce them, it will show, say, for example, in this case, 270 meters. So when this is boat A, when boat A gets to 270 meters, it will tack. And so what you can do with this is simulate a boat overstanding a ley line and the effect that that has on sailing. All right, so once we've sort of got all that set up, then we can come up here, and if we can now see we've got our start line bias. So we can see in this case here, the line angle is 90, the bias angle from square is 0, so no end is favored, 0 meters advantage, no boat lengths advantage, and the overall length of the line is 34.7 boat lengths. Okay, so it'll calculate all these things, so you can show these when you're doing your training. All right, so what we'll do now is just, and then underneath that we've got our course, right? But what we'll do in the start line is we'll simulate what happens when the start line is not perpendicular to the wind. So we'll bring the wind around 10 degrees, and you can see that's moved the mark across, and you'll notice all of the ladder lines have rotated to the right. And now we can see there's a 10-degree bias. Well, over that length of start line, those types of boats at that length, it's now got the boat end is favored by 37.3 meters or 6 boat lengths. Okay, so you can really simulate the difference of how impactful a start line bias is. A bias start line has a major effect on boats and their positions on the fleet, especially if you're sailing off the start line on the right one or the wrong one. Okay, so once you've got your course set up, you can now start to demonstrate. So what I've done is set the course up here with 8 boats, put them on different tacks, and then what I can do is just click the play button here, and you'll notice that they'll all start to move. I've turned the boat metrics off here, but I can turn those back on, and then what I can do is zoom to that fleet, and I can see all the different boats. Now what I can do is introduce, say, an oscillating breeze, an oscillating wind shift. You can see the breeze is going to swing 10 degrees at a period of 20 seconds. Now I can make that a bit slower. So we'll bring that out to like 35 seconds. So you can see it's shifting slowly around to the right. And if I go back out to the course view, then you can see here's all our boats. And you can see here the gap to the leader. So it's telling you who's in front, who's coming second, and so forth. and by what's the gap to that leader in both meters and in boat lengths. So you can see that boat B here, which is the furthest one to weather on there, and started at the boat end, is starting to get favoured, or has been favoured. So you can see that the gap is very close and not changing very much. But you'll notice what happens when the wind starts to come back the other way. You'll see these are changing. All right, so you can see that shift's getting out to 10 degrees. Now, if you want, what you can do is you can change the point at when these boats tack. So what I'll do is I'll just pause here, and then we'll go back here and we'll go down to some of these boats and we'll get them to tack at different points. So if I bring the tack in for boat A and put it here, then you can see that's where it's going to tack. And then boat B, I'll put here, but what I can do is I can get it to overstand the line a little bit. All right, so you can see here it's overlaid the mark. Boat C, we'll just move in. Boat D, and we'll leave the others as tacking on the ley lines. Okay, so there we go there. Boat D, that's a little bit too far. I can bring it back. Sorry. All right, so there you go. So we've got boats tacking, boats overstanding the mark, boats on the ley line. All right, so this is allowing you to basically simulate all these things that can happen in a yacht race. All right, and so once we've got all that set up, then we can take the slider back, take them back behind the mark. Notice how this says -10, and then click play. And we'll make that go fast. Okay, there we go. We've got an oscillating breeze. And now we can see the effects on what's happening here. So you can see boat B is still in front, only by 1.4 meters. And if you zoom in to close to the fleet, you can see this on the ladder lines, the effect of this. We can see what happens. We've got boats that are tacked over the ley line. So you can see boat B now has gone past the ley line and therefore has overstood the mark and therefore has dropped right down. All right, so then we can let that play out. And then what we can do is stop that, bring that back, and then change it to a persistent shift. Left, we're going left at a maximum shift of 10 degrees, and we'll click play. So now the breeze will only go to the left, it won't swing back. So we can see what happens here. So I'm really just showing you how you use the tool. It's up to you to decide how you're going to use it. And if you're teaching yourself, you can use this to sort of see some of these concepts live. But if you're a coach, you can use these to simulate. Okay, so and talk through it. Okay, so what happened here? You know, boat A is in front. You know, how come boat A is in front? Why? Because they were the pin-end boat. All right. And you can see if you look at things like, look at boat B is really far back and say why? Because they overstood the ley line. So these concepts you can use to demonstrate. You can also demonstrate things like, you know, if the mark is offset to one side and another, that really has no effect to the distance sailed. So it's really just things like wind direction that really have an effect. Okay, so you can do that. Now, if you want to, you can also stop that and then change that into a downwind course. All right. So you can see it's basically the same thing, but in opposite. So if we play that out, you'll see all the boats are sailing together at the moment. But we've still got our persistent breeze running. Okay, you see now the boats start to jibe. And our finish line, and now our leaderboard. Okay. You can see the gaps here. You can zoom to the fleet, and you can see them across the ladders, right? So you can see here that boat E here is just in front. Now I'm playing this through fast, so what you can do is come and pause that and then look here and say, right, okay, see what's happening here? And then I can step through and see what's happening because the breeze is coming back to is in the center. Then you can see what's happening. Close finish. All right, so let's just scroll down. All right, so we've went through the wind shifts, we went through setting up the course and the automatic. One feature that we have just added is what we call AI Race Builder. So what this allows you to do is basically use not natural language or a prompt, just like you would ChatGPT, to build a race. Now, just at the moment, this is in beta. You're free to try it, give it a go. But what you can do is you can, so what I'll do is I'll just refresh this. And then I'll come down here and I'll create a race. I'll say, create a race with 6 boats. A 120 meters start line. First mark is 1,000 meters. All boats start on starboard. Mark is offset by 20 meters. Okay, and then once you've done that, just click generate race. And you'll see here it's generating the scenario, and then bingo, there you go. So then it will build out all the boats as you've asked for, build out the course, and so then you can play it. All right, so that's how you use SailPro SIM to play auto races for your sail coaching, sail training. Okay, so welcome back. So in this section, I want to cover manual mode. And manual mode for SailPro SIM, basically, as the name suggests, gives you a lot more control and some special additional features to use. So to access manual mode, all you need to do, come back into SailPro SIM and click the manual toggle switch here. And you'll notice now that we get a few more additional features that are added to the course overview. And I'll run through these. All right, so what we can do here is we can add additional marks. So we can come here, click a mark, move it. Say, for example, if you want to add a hitch mark, and then you can change the name for it. And you can tell it to show the 3 boat length zone if you want, or say, for example, I want to add a gate mark, gate 1. Okay, you can see that will add there, and so you can add additional marks as you go. All right, so that's the extra mark feature that you can add there. And then before I jump into scenario recorder, let's just basically show you what we can do here in the manual mode. So we can put in, as I said, put in additional marks. You can still control the race course the same way. So we can increase the distance to the mark, change the boat length, all that sort of stuff you can do here. But now what you can do is you can move boats manually around the course. So you can have them all on the start line. Again, you can show anywhere between 2 and 8 boats. Or you can move them, basically here. So I can set up 2 boats here, and then what I can do with my race controls is I can step them forward, and then I can tack them individually. All right. And then backwards and forwards, and then I can change the names of the boats here. So Eric and Tom. And so you can see it's changed the names there. If I wanted to hide the gap, the boat information here, the boat metrics, I can hide that from over here. And so now you can see that we can basically see the 2 boats coming together. And so I can tack Tom here. All right, and we are about to have a collision. And what you can do now is you can use the AI Judge tool here to explain to you what the rules, potential rules are that exist at this intersection. Okay, so basically, yeah, it's hit it. Rule 10 on opposite tacks. Eric is on the starboard tack. I can also basically come here and say that Eric is the protesting boat. And then when I run the judge, it will put that information in here. So Eric, which is the protesting boat, and Tom are on opposite tacks. Eric on starboard, Tom on port. Okay, so that's that feature there that allows you to do that. In addition, I can also run my oscillating shifts, and then I can play things through like this as well. Okay, so you can see that I can edit that and then look at different scenarios, tack different people, luff and bear away each boat as well. So I get much more control over what actually the boats are actually doing on the race course. All right, so that's basically using the race control feature. Now, in addition to that, you can use SailPro SIM to manage your protests and record that information. So if I basically reset the sim and then I jump back into manual mode, what I can do is I can put my boats wherever they may be. So say for example, we've got a classic port and starboard, and we've got 2 boats coming together. We've got boat A, which is Tom, and Tom is the protesting boat. And then we've got Eric here, and Eric is on port, Tom is on starboard. If you want, you can zoom into the fleet by double clicking like this. We'll take the show boat metrics off and move Tom back here a little bit. And then what we can do is we can record what we call scenes. So this is why we call it a scenario recorder. So you can call, this can be Tom's view of the incident, and then what you can do is create that. And so now what we're going to do is basically create Tom's view of the incident, a scenario for that. So once we've got them in, what we then do, we can save the step. So we've saved that step here, and then let's say, for example, in the next step, Tom moves forward. You can see we get the shadow here, and then Eric moves forward. We can then put a hail in, so we can say that Tom hailed starboard. And you can see that information will save there, and then we'll save that step. And then we might have another step where, Eric moved forward and Tom came forward, and then we'll we've got no hail here, so we'll save that step. But then maybe what happened was, if we double click and tag Tom, then we've tagged Tom. Right, so we'll save that step. And then what you've got is you've got that scenario there, and then you can load it and then play it. Okay. And so if you go back to previous, then that's what it's doing. And you can also click this little rules button here, and what it will do is go out and take the scenario that's there and then define all of the rules that are in here. So step number 1, Tom is right away boat, Eric must keep clear. It'll give you a precision, whether that's high, and then avoiding contact, which is the next one. And changing course is low if Tom changes course, and so on. So these rules are being, this interpretation of the rules, or it calling out the different rules that apply, are based on the current 2025 racing rules of sailing and the position of the boats. Okay, and then so you can see here what's saying for step number 2, step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. You can see that Eric now becomes the right-of-way boat, right? Because they've tagged and now they're overlapped. So this is a handy way for you to be able to quickly either use this in your own training to understand how to, what the rules are, test yourself and build up your own knowledge of racing rules, but actually use it in a protest hearing to sort of quickly get a snapshot of what rules may apply here, or a quick handy reference. All right, and so you've created, say, Tom's view. What you can then do is then create another scenario that's called Eric's view. Okay, so now we've got 2 different scenarios here. And you can tell that we're recording to Eric's view by the little red dot here. So Eric might say, for example, save step, and then they came forward, and then Eric might say that Tom hailed, hold your course, something like that, okay, and then save that step. And then you can, record those different scenarios and then play them back if you like. So that's very quickly how the auto mode works. Again, you can use the course view. You can double click or write in to zoom right in, and basically use it to either in tactical training to teach or understand the rules even more, or in a protest hearing scenario that you can use this to manage your protests rather than using a whiteboard. All right, so that's the auto mode, and that completes the very quick overview of SailPro SIM. So we'll be doing some more videos, more in-depth videos on how to actually use it and the types of scenarios that you can use SailPro SIM in. But of course, if you'd like to trial it, you can do so. And if you've got any questions at all, please do reach out to us. Okay, thanks for watching.